No Man's Sky celebrated its 8th anniversary this past weekend, an amazing milestone for any game in its own right, but an even bigger achievement for Sean Murray and the team at HelloGames, considering its rather tumultuous launch. No Man's Sky had the cards stacked against it. Pressure on an indie studio by a large publishing partner, hype that it almost certainly couldn't live up to, and a clamoring fanbase expecting not only the world, but a procedurally generated universe. Some would be quick to dismiss its launch and label it a commercial failure. But 8 years later, it's still on the charts and still in our hearts as one of the greatest comeback stories in gaming history. With that in mind, let's take a look at how No Man's Sky refused to be grounded. While I'm performing the pre-flight checks of this video, would you mind liking and subscribing? It's the best way that What's It Like can be found on YouTube, and I can't thank you enough for doing so. No Man's Sky was announced by Sony as a PS4 exclusive game at the 2014 E3 convention, to much hype and excitement. The trailer was mind-blowing, showing off unique life forms, planets that felt alive, and intense multi-planetary dogfights with wingmen. It was a concept that seemed so hard to believe on paper. An infinite universe with an infinite amount of planets and creatures to discover. A seemingly endless game. Sean Murray announced in 2016 that the game would be delayed and not make its June release date, and this was probably our first warning sign that something wasn't going right. And that set off the fanbase to lead the team to receiving death threats. On July 8th though, we were reassured as Murray and the team announced via Twitter that No Man's Sky had gone gold and would land on the PlayStation 4 on August 9th, reinvigorating the fanbase and causing an intense amount of hype. I was among them. No Man's Sky released, and I remember my friends and I going to pick up our copies to meet at my place and play. The anticipation and excitement were palpable. We stocked up on snacks and prepared to pull an all-night gaming session. The wave of launch day reviews, sitting at an average of around 6 out of 10, did little to bring our spirits down. We were hyped. We had dinner, we had our consoles updated, and we vowed to meet up in space to form a fleet of fighters to explore the galaxy, spurred on by the trailers. None of this was meant to be, however, because as we scurried around our respective planets to repair the ships, we started to realize that there was no actual multiplayer. Disappointed, but not discouraged, we trudged on looking to uncover the secrets of the universe, only to find there just wasn't that much to do. The game was basically a grind to gather resources, make minimal upgrades, leave the system, rinse and repeat. Now, I played sporadically for a few weeks after launch, but much like my friends, I just decided to move on and play something else. It wasn't just the critics that No Man's Sky was poorly received with, this sentiment was being shared among fellow gamers as well. Initial sales within the first month were said to be close to the 800,000 mark, with an estimated 60,000 refunds given. Both Sony and Valve's Steam sales page held off on granting refunds to stem the tide of losses, with Sony insisting that the game is being improved on, and Valve adding a special public service announcement to the No Man's Sky listing stating that there are no special exceptions to Steam's refund policy due to the player base dropping by a whopping 89% after the first month. No Man's Sky, it would seem, would go down as a lesson in hype and failure for future generations to study. Retailers moved to reduce on-hand stock, with companies like GameStop and EB Games having plenty of second-hand copies due to the wave of trade-ins on the game. Both disgruntled gamers and the media's voices grew louder, and Murray and the team went radio silence, seemingly hiding from the growing wave of rage and criticism. With no word from Murray and the team, apart from Murray seemingly backtracking on giving free DLC updates, it was evident to the player that the future of the game was more like an imploding black hole than a shining star, and speculation was rife about what happened. with online forums and social media further amplifying dissonance about the title. Many people started shifting blame towards Sony, theorizing that they were responsible for pressuring Murray and HelloGames into releasing a game well before it was ready, and even using their advertising spend to push a false narrative and misleading customers. It's still not entirely clear what happened in the months leading up to launch, but what was clear was consumers didn't get what they paid for, or what they saw in the trailers, or even what they saw in the debut E3 trailer. The void of silence was filled with angry consumers, and, on the outside, it appeared that the title was dead in the water merely months after release. And that could have been the end of it. But it turns out while Murray was silent, he wasn't hiding. He was setting out to make the game he promised the fans, and to do his best to win over the critics. 3 months after the disastrous launch campaign, HelloGames announced the first free update for No Man's Sky in the form of Foundation, aptly named to lay the basis of what was to come. Foundations added in base building and freighters, giving players much more to do in the game. This wasn't the update to miraculously turn things around, but it was more of a promise from Murray and the team that they heard our feedback and were working towards making things right. In March 2017, HelloGames announced its next free update, Pathfinder, adding planetary vehicles and base sharing into the game. It allowed players to collect and use multiple starships and gave players ownerships of their creations by allowing them to share bases for people to visit. While multiplayer was still absent from the game, this update took another huge step towards bringing travelers together. On No Man's Sky's first anniversary, Atlas Rising was announced as another major free update to the game, this time adding an entirely new narrative experience for the story, a graphical overhaul, and a new overhaul of the trading mechanics. By this time, the tide was slowly turning, and life was being breathed back into No Man's Sky by Sean Murray and HelloGames with these free content updates that started to trickle in every few months. More often than not, they changed the way that players could interact with the universe in a major way. Almost 2 years after its disastrous launch, No Man's Sky came to Xbox in the aptly named Next Update, which would eventually welcome over 1 million new travelers to the galaxy when it hit on Game Pass, on top of the already impressive Xbox sales figures. There would be 12 more updates to come before the next major update in the form of Next Gen came out, and that was aimed at the new PS5 and Xbox series of consoles. No Man's Sky at this point was well and truly alive, spurred on by social media groups forming to share where they could find rare ships, bases to explore, and other rare discoveries. Another 13 free content updates were released before my favourite dropped, Waypoint, which seemingly did the impossible by bringing the game to the Nintendo Switch. When the Switch version was initially announced, many gamers believed that it would be a streaming title, as there was no apparent or obvious way the game could look and function as it did in the trailers. We were all wrong, and the Waypoint update was praised by everyone, What's It Like included, as an impossible port that looked and performed great, considering the Nintendo Switch's technical limitations. The best part? The Switch version included nearly all content updates from the past 6 years prior, only missing settlements, multiplayer, and for some odd reason, capes. Several more updates were released, with the standout being Echoes, a complete visual overhaul that somehow improved visual fidelity on Switch by taking advantage of the AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2 technology. This update also saw pirate frigates invade the galaxy, as well as finally allowing Switch players to adorn a cape. At the time of writing this article, No Man's Sky has received a staggering 41 free content updates and expeditions. It's even rumoured that the Amiga update was meant to be the last update for No Man's Sky, Yet Murray and the HelloGames team decided to use what they have learned while developing their upcoming title, Light No Fire, to further enhance the game with the World's Part 1 update, which subsequently boosted interest in the title and brought even more players into the fold. A lot has changed since the launch of No Man's Sky. Sean Murray and HelloGames actively engage with the community on social media, and Sean himself has gone from the perceived villain of a disastrous launch to the hero fans don't deserve. There are constant tweets and jokes and memes about how No Man's Sky players are happy to pay for the updates, yet they keep coming for free. Twitter often goes into a meltdown when Murray tweets a simple emoji, often signifying that something new is coming soon, and that hype and excitement from pre-launch is there with every update, and the communities on social media welcome new travellers with open arms. As an outsider looking in, it appears that HelloGames refused to let the dream of No Man's Sky die by working together to create the game that they always wanted, free from publisher constraints and deadlines. No Man's Sky is now revered in the gaming community as the ultimate redemption arc, rising from the ashes to deliver far more than what was initially expected from the game in the first place. Sean Murray and HelloGames could have written No Man's Sky off after launch, and the sales numbers would have still reflected a success for the then 14-strong development team. As it stands now, No Man's Sky sits on a very positive review rating on Steam and often features in the top-selling titles of all console charts. No Man's Sky started out lost in space, but by re-engaging the community with free updates and actively listening to feedback, HelloGames has done the impossible by resurrecting what could be perceived as a foul product, reinvigorating a jaded player base to look to the skies and welcome a fleet of new explorers to enjoy the wonderful universe they have procedurally generated. While the development of No Man's Sky may be nearing the end of its life cycle, for many travelers, the adventure is only just beginning. I'll see you amongst the stars, travelers. Thanks so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. The best way you can support me is to like and subscribe and continue watching my content if you enjoy it. But if you do want to go that bit extra, you can buy me a coffee or join our Patreon, which shows you behind the scenes of this channel. Thanks again.